Imagine holding a machine so advanced that when scientists finally figured out what it actually did, they had to rewrite an entire chapter of human history. Now imagine that this machine wasn't built last century, or even 500 years ago. It was built over 2,000 years ago, buried at the bottom of the ocean, and when researchers finally understood its true complexity, nothing this sophisticated would be built again for over 1,000 years. This is not science fiction. This is a real object, sitting today in a museum in Athens, and its discovery completely changed what we thought ancient civilizations were capable of. Stay till the end, because the true purpose of this machine wasn't fully understood until modern X-ray technology cracked it open more than a century after it was first found, 1901. A small Greek island called Antikythera, sitting in the Aegean Sea between Crete and mainland Greece. A group of sponge divers, working in the waters just off the island's coast, stumble upon something completely unexpected lying on the ocean floor. The wreckage of an ancient Roman-era cargo ship sunk more than 2,000 years earlier, scattered with statues, coins, jewelry, and pottery from a bygone world. It's an incredible archaeological find on its own, and the divers spend months recovering treasures from the wreck site. Among the recovered items is a small, badly corroded lump of bronze and wood, barely larger than a shoebox, encrusted with centuries of marine growth and corrosion. Compared to the ornate statues and glittering treasures pulled from the same wreck, this unremarkable, crumbling chunk of metal draws almost no attention at all. It gets shipped off to the National Archaeological Museum in Athens along with everything else, and for a while, it simply sits there, largely overlooked. Then, roughly a year later, the fragmented lump cracks open on its own, revealing something no one expects. Inside is an intricate arrangement of small bronze gears, dozens of them, fitted together with a level of mechanical precision that seems completely out of place for anything built in the ancient world. Researchers at the time are stunned, but also deeply confused. Nothing else discovered from ancient Greece or Rome comes anywhere close to this level of engineering sophistication. Let that sink in for a second. A mechanical device, packed with dozens of precisely cut bronze gears, sitting quietly at the bottom of the ocean for over 2,000 years, was casually recovered by sponge divers who initially had no idea what they'd actually found. For decades afterward, the object, now known as the Antikythera Mechanism, remains a genuine puzzle. Early researchers can tell it's clearly some kind of geared device, but the corrosion and fragmentation make it almost impossible to understand exactly what it was originally designed to do. Some early theories suggest it might be an astronomical instrument of some kind, but without being able to see inside the corroded fragments clearly, nobody can confirm exactly how complex it really is, or what specific calculations it was built to perform. This is where the story becomes almost impossible to fully grasp using the technology available at the time. The mechanism survives only in a shattered, corroded state, broken into more than 80 separate fragments, some containing gears smaller than a fingernail, with tooth patterns so fine and precise that early 20th century researchers struggle just to count how many teeth each individual gear actually has, let alone understand how the entire assembly worked together as a functioning system. It isn't until the 1970s, decades after the initial discovery, that a British science historian named Derek de Solla Price uses early X-ray imaging technology to peer inside the corroded fragments without physically damaging them further. What he finds inside completely reshapes scientific understanding of the device. Hidden beneath the corrosion is an astonishingly complex system of at least 30 interlocking bronze gears, arranged with mathematical relationships that mirror the movements of the sun, the moon, and possibly several visible planets across the sky. Let that sink in for a second. Buried inside this small, unassuming lump of corroded bronze is a functioning mechanical model of the movements of the solar system, built by hand, using nothing but ancient tools, more than 2,000 years before anyone had electricity, precision machining, or computers of any kind. Decades later, in the early 2000s, an international team of researchers uses far more advanced technology, high-resolution 3D X-ray CT scanning, to examine the fragments in even greater detail than ever before. This new scanning technology allows scientists to essentially see straight through the corroded bronze and read faint inscriptions and gear patterns that had been completely invisible to the naked eye for over 2,000 years. What they discover is almost unbelievable in scope. The Antikythera Mechanism, researchers determine, was capable of tracking the positions of the sun and moon through the zodiac, predicting the exact timing of solar and lunar eclipses years in advance, modeling the irregular orbit of the moon with remarkable mathematical accuracy, and even tracking a 4-year cycle that corresponded to the schedule of the ancient Olympic Games and other Pan-Hellenic athletic festivals. All of this was accomplished using a hand-cranked system of dozens of precisely interlocking bronze gears, some with teeth cut to a level of precision that wouldn't be matched again in mechanical devices for well over 1,000 years. Here's the number that makes this discovery genuinely staggering once you actually sit with it. After the Antikythera Mechanism was built, roughly sometime between 150 and 100 BCE, historians and engineers agree that nothing approaching this same level of mechanical complexity appears again in the historical record until the development of elaborate astronomical clocks in medieval Europe, more than 1,000 years later. For over a millennium, human civilization apparently either lost, forgot, or simply never rediscovered the specific combination of mathematical and mechanical knowledge required to build something this sophisticated again. This staggering gap raises a genuinely unsettling question that historians still actively debate today. Was the Antikythera Mechanism a completely unique, one-of-a-kind masterpiece built by a single brilliant individual or workshop whose knowledge simply died with them? Or does its existence suggest that similarly advanced devices were actually far more common in the ancient world than we currently have any physical evidence for, with most of them simply lost to time, melted down for scrap bronze, or still sitting undiscovered at the bottom of the ocean, waiting for future divers to stumble across them the way those sponge divers did back in 1901? Inscriptions found etched onto the mechanism's surface, many of which have only become readable using that modern high-resolution scanning technology, reference astronomical and calendar systems associated with ancient Greek astronomy. And some researchers have connected specific design elements of the device to the work of renowned ancient scholars, including calculations potentially linked to the astronomer Hipparchus, though the exact identity of the mechanism's original creator remains genuinely unknown to this day. Modern engineers and horologists, specialists who study the history and mechanics of clocks and precision instruments, have gone on to build several fully functioning physical and digital reconstructions of the Antikythera Mechanism based on the scan data, successfully demonstrating that the device really could perform every single calculation researchers believe it was originally designed for. Turning the mechanism's hand crank in these modern reconstructions genuinely produces an accurate, moving model of solar and lunar positions and predicted eclipse timing, exactly as ancient users would have experienced firsthand over 2,000 years ago. To this day, the Antikythera Mechanism remains on permanent display at the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, still actively studied by historians, engineers, and archaeologists using increasingly advanced imaging technology as it becomes available, with researchers continuing to extract new inscriptions and mechanical details from the fragments even now, well over a century after those sponge. Divers first pulled the corroded lump of bronze up from the ocean floor without any idea what they'd actually discovered. So what do we actually take away from a story like this one? It's easy to assume that human technological progress moves in a single, steady, upward line, with each generation simply building smoothly on the last. But that's exactly what makes the Antikythera Mechanism so genuinely fascinating, and honestly, a little humbling to think about. It shows that extraordinary human ingenuity has appeared, disappeared, and occasionally been completely lost throughout history, sometimes for well over 1,000 years at a stretch. No modern tools, no electricity, no precision machining as we understand it today. And somehow, over 2,000 years ago, someone built a working mechanical computer capable of predicting the movements of the sky. Next time you assume something described as ancient must also be primitive, try to remember there was once a small bronze device, lost at the bottom of the ocean for 2,000 years, that could calculate eclipses more accurately than most people alive today could do by hand. If this story hit you the way it hit me while researching it, make sure you're subscribed, because there are true stories out there, even stranger and more extreme than this one, and I'm going to tell you every single one of them.